Right. Thank you so much. It's a great honor to address you briefly. Sorry that I missed the opportunity to share some introductory remarks, but I'm very sure that with Her Excellency Professor Tubiana and others sharing the introductory remarks who are covered on substance and inspiration. So my colleague told me that I'm going to share some reflections. So I told him, young man, I cannot really share reflections on a session that I only attended the part of it. But that reminded me of a colleague in one institution when we were discussing a report on Knowledge Bank with the multilateral development banks as Knowledge Bank. That was like 9 years ago. It was like 400 pages, and he came late to the session, and he didn't even read the report. And he said, "Well, I didn't read the report. However, I have some comments to make." So, and he was brave enough to inspire us, but I cannot match his talent and skills on that. But I come with few issues based on one of the creators on the labs, a contributor to fighting poverty, and now she has great deal of work on climate action, linking it to sustainable development goals and fighting poverty, especially extreme poverty in Africa and beyond, which is Professor Esther Duflo. And that was on the building up of COP27. And we asked her what could be the most critical issue that we need to consider. And she didn't really let us down by giving us 3 areas of focus that I think, at least in the few minutes I listened to, have been captured one way or another. One is about finance, the second is about technology, and the third is about the incentive structure. And each one of these areas require data systems, information, and knowledge sharing. In order to have adequate finance, you definitely need some support on the data on what works and what does not, how to avoid overlap, how to maximize impact. On areas related to science and technology, again, it's based on evidence and based on experimental and scientific solutions. And the third, people say, well, regulatory structure, frameworks for policymakers. Actually, this is exactly in need for more information, research and development to share experience from around the world. Some of the best examples, and actually we're just in the carbon market discussion today, are with those who benefited from other countries' experience, not to reinvent wheels and push hard with the right partnerships based on data and adequate information. So I have a few suggestions for you for areas that we really need some work on, and I'm happy that many of you in the room, including Excellency Professor Tubiana, on the leadership. First, on the climate and development finance. In the carefully prepared notes for me, I see them overwhelming everybody with numbers, but I have doubts with the aggregated data at the global level, because there is very little that we have from the local level in which you can really go through a bottom-up approach, including the good work on the cities, for instance, that was mentioned by Bloomberg. We need more of that. It's not just the top-down, it's not just the bottom-up, but basically in a more collaborative manner, we need to know the requirements for climate finance, and there is important work that started with COP27, continuing now with COP28 and COP27 on climate and development finance with Professor Nick Stern, Vera Songwe, Amar Bhattacharya, and great group of experts trying to provide some solutions on gaps, and more importantly, how to solve them. If you are seeking more controversial topic, please welcome to the new world of ESG. It's full of science, controversy. You need the best lawyers if you are in the United States. You need the most substantive teams for hard work. And if you have ideas, I'm seeing colleagues from UNFCCC with me here who are tasked to operationalize the recommendation of the high-level experts group by Minister McKenna. And if you have ideas, please share them immediately, please, with the Executive Secretary of the UN, of the UNFCCC. Again, here the problems are there. What we don't need really is to add more challenges. And again, please try to challenge the old way. When I was in government as a minister asking for help, I would get a report, 85% about problems that I'm more familiar with, and 15% of generic wisdom that it needs to be tailored for the country needs. I'm self-critical. I still work with these MDBs and IFIs, so it's not really criticizing fellows from a distance. It's self-criticism, I hope constructively. Then on carbon market, and we just finished the work on ACME and the pillars, but it needs definitely more support on guidance from science and researchers. If you are finished with that, you can help us with this kind of important work related to adaptation. The main challenge for Africa is not just about emissions, because everybody, including His Excellency the President of Kenya today, said, well, when it comes to emissions, go elsewhere, because we are very low in emissions. But we are among the top sufferers from the consequences. A simple challenge. Why the private sector, including actually to a great extent philanthropies, are still shying away from climate finance when it comes to adaptation. Now we have the Sharm el-Sheikh adaptation agenda of 5 specific areas of work, seeking finance technology to support planning in areas related to water management, food system, agricultural development, settlements, defending the coastal areas and beyond. Can you provide guidance to the private sector eager to engage on this, but perhaps the perception of risk is complicating their work? If you are finished with this task, you can help a big thing, because there is, I would say, and they are all friends, that Professor Stern, my sister Vera, and Amar have great deal of emphasis on domestic resource mobilization. It will not just come from external finance, private or public. It will come from domestic resource mobilization. And here the figures are of trillions of what could be mobilized. A simple question. Why until this very moment, since the great global achievement of having the Paris Agreement, and we have again the leader of the Friends of Paris with us in the room, why we don't really have a budget-based SDGs, a budget-based climate action, and we think of budget as a kind of an afterthought? What could be the kind of work on that? If you are finished with this task, I have 2 more and I'll finish. One is related to the ongoing work on the just energy transition partnerships. Why it is progressing in some countries slowly and is basically stumbling in others. Why we're not really seeing adequate effort in the decarbonization of the hard-to-abate sector. What can we do more in order to convince the G7 and beyond to engage further in this area? And then I have a final challenge with solutions. We can always talk about knowledge, scientific research, but without basic investment in data systems, your work will be very much compromised. In what way we can really improve the data systems, tailoring them for decision making, not just for government, but for the private sector and philanthropy to do a better job going forward. Having said that, I'm looking forward to the outcomes of your collaboration, and without science, research, and the great minds behind it, from university networks to think tanks and research centers, our work will not be finished. But I'm more optimistic that we're realizing the importance of bridging these gaps and looking forward to the outcomes of your great work collectively. Thank you so much.